This is an excerpt from a book by Mike Dooley called Infinite Possibilities. So if you wouldn't mind closing your eyes and just letting yourself experience this. Not long ago, in the nether reaches of ad infinitum, there formed a council of fearless explorers, adventurers, much like you, who had become bored with perfection, infinity, and unending bliss. Whatever it was that they wanted, they got. However they wanted to change, they did. And whatever they wanted to be, they became. Their existence had become same old, that they hardly felt like the great adventurers they were. It wasn't enough, they agreed. Something had to be done. So being who they were, they decided to invent an entirely new dimension for their reality. Well, new dimensions, even for these adventurers, don't get invented very often. So you can imagine their excitement as they began to explore the vast new possibilities that suddenly lay before them. In this dimension, it was especially exciting because it made possible the previously unthinkable ability of being in just one place without being everywhere else all at once. You see, back then, in the nether reaches of ad infinitum, there was only the here and now. Nothing else existed. These poor explorers never had anywhere to go because they were already everywhere. What their new dimension did was enable them to dim their awareness of everywhere else enough to focus on being a single somewhere at a time. And now that they could create somewheres, they found they could each devise secret patterns among their somewheres to play games and conduct experiments. In fact, they did this so often that they began referring to this new dimension as the secret pattern adventure for creative enlightenment, or SPACE for short. Space became the new frontier with lots of possibilities for exploration, fun, and games. And perhaps the most remarkable phenomenon about space was the startling discovery that it could be filled with their thoughts. Whenever their thoughts were focused and concentrated within their space, they became dense and appeared solid. They discovered that they could think big or small, red or blue, hard or soft, whatever they imagined, and their thoughts would then become the same thing in space. These adventurers had discovered that their thoughts could be projected into this space of theirs, where they would then appear as objects. And they quickly came to realize that they could manifest any thought that existed into reality. So in no time at all, mostly because time had not yet been invented, matter began to fill their space because they were manifesting any thought that existed into reality. Matter, of course, was the acronym of that. Creativity soared as they dabbled, first creating stars and planets and then mountains and oceans. Everything they dreamed of came to life in an explosion of light, color, and sound that stretched their imagination to the very edges of their space. It was all incredibly exciting, except deep down inside, they knew that something was missing. As spectacular as their new worlds were, they themselves, the creators of everything, remained on the outside looking in at their creations. The adventurers began to ponder, how could they become more a part of the mysterious, enchanting material worlds they'd created? And in their wondering, they asked, if our matter is simply occupied space, and deep down we know that we're really still everywhere all at once, could we possibly exist in the very same space that holds our matter? Well, of course they could. And as they thought about it, they did it, taking up residence inside their matter, just as if it were a somewhere, by diminishing their awareness of everywhere else. Now, to make things even more interesting, right about then, a new game called hide and seek was being invented. And as could be predicted, the adventurers scurried about and hid themselves inside their creations, where they would not likely be found. They hid under matter, animated in the now, because now was still all there really was, since time had not yet been invented. And henceforth, they referred to themselves as being human when they were in their hiding. It was a great idea, this hiding under matter, so great, in fact, that no one was ever found. So despite their joy in having found a new game to play, they were no longer aware of one another's discoveries. Big problem. This prompted a call to go out for the need to trace one another in material existence. Thus, time was finally born. The games resumed, reunions were planned, and the fun really began. That is, until everyone had pretty much been there, done that, and another idea was needed. And given the adventurers' track record, it didn't take them long to come up with one. What if, they thought, we all venture out together in human form into the same space at the exact same time? Whoa, this idea was so monumental, so profound, so colossal that it sent a big bang booming throughout all creation, and it has since been compared to the invention of light itself. Well, by now, it should be obvious that these adventurers weren't your normal, everyday kind of adventurers. They were creative adventurers on a mission to have as much fun as could possibly be imagined. And to that end, as you well know, they've been wildly successful, though they have met up with a few wrinkles that are still being ironed out. For instance, once time was invented, they spent so much of it playing as a creation among their creations that they began to lose themselves. For example, during their unending games of hide and seek, they stayed human for so long, not wanting to be found, that they actually began to forget that they were also everywhere else at once. Many more began to forget that they were even adventurers. And so, as time marched on, they fell into a deeper and deeper trance. In fact, so far did they fall that they began to feel trapped within their bodies and helpless among their creations. No longer did they notice that they themselves were the ones crafting the objects and events of their lives with their thoughts. Though this didn't change, instead, they saw these things as something to contend with. Unfortunately, a direct result of this naivete led to their first taste of fear, which was felt whenever they failed to experience the actual reality before them. A scary thing, they soon found out. No fun at all. And worse, a whole horde of emotions sprang to life with their every misunderstanding. Never in any reality have such lofty beings plunged into such great despair. Terror, anger, sadness, and guilt were rampant. It was a travesty through and through until, little by little, there began a great healing not from on high or any other such place, though some still say it was a mystically incited reality adjustment concealed by love and titles. No, by loving entities, excuse me. It was a healing that had transpired from within, life ministering to life itself, perhaps a miracle either way. Mystically inciting reality adjustments concealed by loving entities, miracle. It turns out that the adventurers were learning from their emotions. For example, if fear stems from the failure to experience the actual reality before you, then at least it serves as an unmistakable warning to the one doing the fearing, that his or her thinking has strayed from the truth. And there was even more good news about these emotions. It turned out they could also be warm and fuzzy, funny and silly, and even wild and crazy. And it was their passage through all the emotions, happy and sad, that brought the illustrious ones, as they came to be called, their greatest achievement, an inner pleasure experienced by accepting all creation as it exists, or inner peace. Mastered by so few, as it requires a deep understanding of the perfection that exists within everything, every moment, every place, and in every one, no matter what. By now, in the present day, all forms of awareness from everywhere, ever thought of, have ever heard about space, time, and the brilliant adventurers who created it all. And those who drop by for a look at this little corner of creation are so astounded by what they find that they are changed forever. It's not just the splendor of the planets, nor the raging life that thrives upon them, nor even the bold and outrageous thoughts that continue to perpetuate them all, that astounds the visitors. Observers are left speechless and are downright humbled by the few who have returned from the adventure, those adventurers who have actually found themselves. These are the illustrious ones whose glowing radiance and divine illumination reflect an understanding rooted in the unshakable knowledge that all things and events are born of thought, that in time and space it's all good, and that everything, everywhere, always is one. Only by losing themselves and serving their illusions could these adventurers then be driven emotionally by their burning desires to reclaim and know the depths of their own divinity. By truly understanding their reality, they've become the inspiration and the ideal for all to follow. Having just shared all that, it is a bit amazing to us that more have not joined the ranks of the illustrious ones. Certainly to each his or her own. It's just that they're all still so caught up in the most awesome adventure of theirs that it seems they really couldn't care less about everywhere else. Perhaps you understand them better now. Still, to us at least, it seems a shame that such inexhaustible energy and creative genius is being so thoroughly neglected. If they could, and we assure you they can, just for an instant, glimpse their greater reality and see themselves as the omniscient, unlimited, fun-loving gladiators they've always been, it would so radically change everything. Not that they should return, heavens no. We just think that they may have a better time, shall we say, if reminded that they themselves are creators, don't you think? By the way, We've blown the lid clear off your little charade. Found you. Now, let's get this party started. Love is all there is. That is what the song right before the meditation said. God is love. God is everywhere present. God is the constant, unchanging, the source of all that is, from which all arises and to which all returns. The Alpha and the Omega. The meaning of the meditation song is that love cannot be threatened. God is love. God is everywhere present. God is in you and I. So how do we reconcile this when we're having a human experience and so much in this physical existence can feel threatening? Including our bodies. We feel our bodies can be threatened. For a little over 4 weeks, and still even a little bit now, my body was feeling threatened. I had a cough that was diagnosed as not COVID. It was also diagnosed as not pneumonia. But whatever it was, it kicked my butt. I was noticing my thoughts about annoyance, frustration, pain. At night, I could hear crackling, seemed like pneumonia to me. I actually had pain in my lungs. And my voice triggered coughing. That's not a great thing for a coach who spends all day talking. My sleep was interrupted. All of these things were leading to fear thoughts. And I was noticing my spiritual calm undertone as well. A serene recognition that I am not my body and that the essence of what I am is not threatened, no matter what my experience. It was that calm that allowed me to be in both spaces, and I was actually amused by the way these two seemingly opposite thoughts and rants of thoughts could coexist. The real blessing comes with the awareness of how each made me feel. And the difference always came down to presence. As I was thinking things like, there's so much to do, but I feel like shapoopy, one thing I could do was go within. I came across this video by Sadhguru. That name actually is true guru in Sanskrit. And in this video, he talks about our life experience in this way. He says, your whole life is happening between 3 dimensions of time: memory, present experience, and imagination. This is your life, isn't it? These 3 dimensions. He said, all your experience of life is happening here, but if you lose distinction between what is past, what is present, and what is future, then everything hurts. Not everyone has terrible things happen, yet some have. But even for those who haven't, the rest of us, we're simply suffering something. And then he says something that really hit me. He says, the rest of us are simply suffering something because it's fashionable to suffer. People think if they're suffering, they're intellectual. They're very profound. No, it's just stupid, he said, because you're suffering something that doesn't exist. You are not suffering what's happening right now. You're suffering what happened yesterday, and you're suffering something that may happen tomorrow already in advance. And this madness has been entrenched simply because we never trained people how to use their faculties. That's a very marvelous video. The faculty that I had used was to notice and to go within. I also recognized how my mind was cycling between the two, pleasant and unpleasant tracks, and that if I could think of it as a process for healing and expansion, it shifted things. And the fact that it lasted so long was ample time for me to notice this cycle and employ it. I was reading something else from the Unity Worldwide website, and while what it was stating was about COVID, it really applies to everything, because we're experiencing a great undoing. Sure, COVID is highly politicized, polarized, and like a minefield of trigger points. But in the world right now, so many other things are too. Increasing prices, the war in Ukraine, abortion, education, our monetary system, our system of government. So much is politicized, polarized, and like a minefield of trigger points. But what it said next, what I was reading in the Unity Worldwide Ministry website, is what I really wanted us to focus on. It said, please be mindful of what comes up for you and allow yourself to just be with it. Is how we are handling this blank, COVID, war, systems breaking down, is how we are handling this, you fill in the blank, in alignment with our unity principles. Do we agree on what our unity principles are? Blank is not real, and blank is very real. Nobody is right, nobody is wrong, and everybody is right. Everybody is wrong. As long as we are in the physical experience, we live in a world of duality, each creating our own reality based on our perceptions and beliefs about reality. And Joel Goldsmith shares, here again we are confronted with the two worlds, the world of pure consciousness and the world of material sense. All who live in material sense know fear. And I say, fear is in everything we judge, and it's an opportunity for transmutation. Evidence based in fear is likely misleading and polarizing. Evidence that does not take into account God, spirit, or the power of the mind is likely not telling the whole story. Go within for your own path. Be mindful of what comes up for you and allow yourself to be with it. This is a simple cycle, the simplicity cycle. Recognize what you're judging. Recognize what is triggering you. Go within. Be mindful of what comes up for you and allow yourself to be with it. Fear, as the trickster, tricks us into conflict and separation. It's a distraction. We are afraid, though, in unity, together, united. And it is okay to be afraid. Fear is part of the human experience. Fear is normal. It's okay to have fear. It's okay to admit we have fear. What might not be okay is to ignore or suppress fear, to spiritually bypass fear, to perpetuate and propagate fear, to put our fear on others. And I found this quote from Myrtle Fillmore. As we learn that we are God's children living here to find out His plan for us, We become more and more interested in studying spiritual things for ourselves. We are no longer willing to accept the opinions of others, not to live as they live, especially if their ways bring sickness and sorrow. We begin to feel rightly that there must be a way of living that will keep us well and happy. Acknowledging fear is healing because it deepens our understanding that mind creates experience. And the evidence of something fearful in my experience is an indicator that I have fear in my mind. So going within is what helps me heal there. The mind and that healing will then become evidenced in the world. I have seen the enemy, and it is I, says Alexander the Great. No noise is louder than the noise inside my head. Judgment amplifies the feeling of separateness. It's okay to disagree, but let disagreeing make you aware of attachment. Attachment to your opinion, a misunderstanding that you could possibly know better from where you are than they can from where they are. I'm going to say that again. Can we let disagreeing be a gift of awareness that I have an attachment to my opinion? And that is a misunderstanding that I could possibly know better from where I am than you can know from where you are. Instead, can we come back to the simplicity cycle? It's all for me to shift. I cannot know what anything means. Show me from a healed perspective how to see this differently. That's one of my favorite exercises from A Course in Miracles. So let's be reminded of our unity principles. God is absolute good, everywhere present. Every human being is an expression of the divine, the Christ Spirit, by whatever name indwells all people. Their very essence is of God, and therefore they are also inherently good. Human beings create their experience by the activity of their thinking. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. Prayer is creative thinking that heightens the connection with God mind and therefore brings forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. Knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth he or she knows. So I had a couple affirmations for us. I look to the indwelling Christ for inspiration to guide, govern, and prosper me. I don't expect you to be able to repeat that back, but I just want you to feel that one. I look to the indwelling Christ for inspiration to guide, govern, and prosper me. I will, to the best of my understanding and ability, demonstrate truth in my personal and professional life. I believe in the power of prayer. The simplicity cycle goes from simple to complex, and in the complex gives us things to judge. And as we're judging, we get to go within and return to the simple. How do I hope to change anything out there? Go within. I found a quote, "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all of the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. It is not necessary to seek for what is true, but it is necessary to seek for what is false and to heal it. Go within. Thank you very much.